We now take you live to the Central Texas Command Center and the heart of the resistance. You're listening to Alex Jones.
We only bet on winners here. And Trump is going to win. But the establishment is going to try to contest the election, scuttle the country, and crash the stock market, I predict. And Robert Barnes will give us his take on that coming up next segment. But because real candor is our maxim here, and I don't want to be pushing hopium on people, we've got a problem, and obviously I'm going to end up supporting the nomination because the Democrats are going to try to block it. They would put somebody in probably even worse. At least she's anti-abortion, but she is for forced inoculation. I didn't just believe constitutional lawyer Robert Barnes. He's a really smart guy and a friend of mine. I didn't think he was lying, but I got the decision that she did a few months ago. I went and looked it up. I read the decision Friday night. I'd already heard about this weeks ago. And I went and I pulled it all up. And the new Supreme Court nominee supports well, why don't we just have Robert Barnes tell us? And again, the Democrats are already saying kill her, they hate her, blah, blah, blah. I don't like them. I'm not trying to join them. I'm not saying don't confirm her. I'm just saying, my God, I wish I'd have been on this earlier and we'd have been hammering this harder to get to the president, because I know the president means well. And now they've got, well, they're going to have 5 justices. She's going to join the Democrats in forced inoculation and lockdowns, and which she just ruled on. And I've got the articles right here. So Amy Coney Barrett, constitutional lawyer Robert Barnes, tell us what we're dealing with here.
Sure. So the authoritarian wing of the Federalist Society and some of those folks really were shocked back in late May when 4 Supreme Court justices, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Alito, Justice Thomas, and Justice Kavanaugh, all said that basically we're calling the lockdowns unconstitutional. And in particular, they went out of their way to reject a decision called the Jacobson case, which is the forced vaccination case that was being used to justify the mask mandates and the lockdown.
And that's from 1905, right?
That's exactly right. And so their point was that this decision, the Jacobson decision, is no longer governing law and is not the guiding star. So that made some authoritarian types nervous on the pro-lockdown side of the aisle. And so they went out looking for a judge who could replace Ginsburg if she were to pass away before the election. And on the list of the 22 judges that the president was considering, only one had supported the lockdown, and that was Judge Barrett. Judge Barrett not only supported the lockdown, she cited the Jacobson decision as good governing law.
So she was signaling a well-known eugenics case that allowed the health departments, the sterilization, the eugenics. She was signaling, hey, I'll go against the court. She was shaking a tail feather.
Exactly. And what I tell people is, what's the likelihood that the only one of the 22 people on Trump's list that has ever said anything pro-Jacobson or pro-lockdown is the one that's pushed onto Trump? So what they told Trump is that she would support him in the election because she was part of the Bush v. Gore team, and that's how they got Trump to go along with it. Trump's not been following the lockdown lawsuits in any detail or the forced vaccination cases.
Brother, I've been busy too. You're the one that told me about this a week and a half ago, and I was like, I mean, you can't track everything. It's just...
And the Federalist Society has so much control over conservative media and conservative lawyers that none of them are willing to challenge it or contest it. I've taken a lot of heat from a lot of people just for pointing this out about Barrett.
I was going to say, I'm not a lawyer, but I can usually find stuff in 30 seconds. After you sent me the name of the decision the other night when we talked, I putted it around for like an hour trying to find anything about it. I finally found it, but they have really suppressed it.
Completely. And it's not a coincidence that, that people like George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's husband, who hates Trump, has come out for Judge Barrett, that this was a Koch brother coup. So the Koch family put in massive amount of money and effort to make sure Barrett got the pick. And they're already spending more money than the Republican Party is to make sure she gets on the bench. And people who may not know, the Koch family is big on, they're pro-immigration, actually. They're also big on protecting big tech.
Oh, they've given more money to Democrats than to Republicans. That's a psyop that they're actually Republican operatives. Let's expand on that. They use fake libertarianism to just gut the country.
Absolutely. They are the #1 funders of the Federalist Society, the #1 funders of Reason Magazine. And so they make sure that the libertarians support a corporatist, statist agenda. That's really been their objective for a long time. They had, for example, they refused to come out against masks. All the institutions funded by the Koch brothers haven't brought any of the lockdown lawsuits. So
that's right.
That tells
so
you
this
where
is a
they
major coup for the Koch brothers. What about this? Bill Barr, I know, was CIA high level and worked for George Herbert Walker and did some bad things. But since he's got in, overall, he's been better. I know you had questions about him, so did I. I've been impressed overall. Still nothing on the Durham, still a lot of problems. But instead of an F- like I was thinking, more like a B-, which, I mean, I'm happy to get some crumbs here. Give me your view. Could she, now that she has a different master, could she be persuaded by the court? Could we make an issue out of this in confirmation instead of all the leftist talking points to get her to confirm that that she doesn't want to run sterilization camps and forced inoculation?
I would hope that Republicans would put her on alert on this issue in the examination process, but I think the internal message has gone out that if anyone questions her, they'll be brutally attacked by the Federalist Society connected people, which are very influential in the legal conservative media space.
So let's go back. I'm interrupting here because you're the brain on this, but let's go back to the Jacobson decision, because I went and read the damn thing and it made me want to throw up Friday night. Tell folks about it.
Jacobson is one of the worst decisions ever issued. It basically said that the 14th Amendment did not protect your liberties at all. This was back during the early 1900s when the Supreme Court was not enforcing constitutional liberties against the states. That took the Civil Rights Act to start actually enforcing that again. And so what they said was that you could, and in that case, all the person was asking for was an opportunity to have a hearing to show that the vaccine was dangerous and that he didn't need it. And they said he wasn't even entitled to a trial or a hearing on it. They said that if there's a public health, if quote unquote public health emergency, that all of the 14th Amendment, all your constitutional rights are suspended. And that's what Judge Barrett just signed off on in Illinois. I mean, the governor had banned all political gatherings based on your speech. And she said that's just fine because largely because Jacobson, she cited Jacobson to say you have no protected liberty under the 14th Amendment in the case of a public health emergency.
And obviously the UN globally is literally taking over with contact tracing, control apps, forced inoculations, global starvation with this overriding arc. And I looked up the case, so I'd heard about it before from Dr. Blaylock. He mentioned it years ago on the show, the Jacobson case. That was funded by the Rockefellers, who were taking over Western medicine at the time and thought the best way to control society would be through medicine. That's why when Hitler in the Nuremberg trials, the Nazis used Jacobson in the trial. And I remember this, and I looked it up last night, actually, that they'd actually used the arguments and that Margaret Sanger supported it, that this is how they set up the health departments, the forced sterilization. I mean, so much evil worldwide has been based on this Jacobson decision, and to have her being a supporter of it, that's pretty frightening.
It's terrifying, and the fact that she was the only one on the list that was in favor of it, it makes it clear why she was picked. I mean, not by Trump, but why they were forced Trump to take her under the false pitch that she would protect him in the election without really getting into these issues. Trump has become very isolated. He's not hearing a lot of his populist messages or populist audience, except when he goes on Twitter himself personally. And that's increasingly sporadic over the last month or so, in part due to the nature of his schedule. And so so Jacobson was the foundation for the Buck decision, which was forced sterilizations and the peak of eugenics in America. It was the basis for the Korematsu decision, which was the detention camps in America. So Jacobson is the most dangerous decision ever issued in American constitutional legal history.
It says if the medical corps says it, we can kill your ass. I mean, we can put you in a concentration camp.
Jacobson was cited as the grounds for the forced draft. Jacobson was cited as the grounds that you could kill Americans overseas as enemy combatants. Any horror.
By the way, you're not just saying that. I looked this up. Jacobson is seen as one of the most evil rulings in U.S. history, and there's been a lot of evil ones. And this lady just endorsed it in 2020. Man, you talk about shaking that tail feather. All right. I don't think it's a meet the new boss, same as the old boss, like the Who song goes. I know the globalists don't want Trump. I know Trump's done a lot of good things. But I'm not going to sit here like a mindless cheerleader when I see what's going on and not talk about it. So a couple weeks ago, Barnes was talking about problems with Amy Coney Barrett, and I went and looked it up, and I saw the nominee he was talking about, who later they said was one of the runner-ups. And I looked at the Koch brothers, and I looked at this lady's rulings, and I saw her with her kids she's adopted, and I see her anti-abortion stance. I like all that. But then when it came to forced inoculations and eugenics and this case that's like reviled and was used in the Nuremberg trials by the Nazis, that was her signaling, I'm an authoritarian, something deeper than just the liberals, the Democratic Party, the real threat of that deep multinational corporate control that's in America that's allowed to sell out of the country to China, the open borders, all of it. So I want to get into some other issues with you in a few minutes here, but I think what is the point of us even talking about this? Because she'll be lionized now when they come out and demonize her, or the Democrats attack her, when they call her a Christian cult member, and all this. People will rally around her when they try to stop her. And I do want to see her vote to get Trump in. So the Democrats are going to contest the election. What is the point of this? I guess just our integrity to just point out this is a really bad move by Trump, and to hopefully have some type of political pressure on her to not become the second coming of Adolf Hitler?
I think it becomes twofold. One is to try to get some Republican senators like Rand Paul to put her on blast on these issues, to back down her commitment on these issues. But I think the bigger message is we need Trump elected now more than ever, because the effect of Barrett being on the bench means that the only thing stopping forced vaccines, the only thing stopping another national lockdown, the only thing stopping these sort of George Soros, Koch family, big money elite agenda, Bill Gates agenda, will be Donald Trump getting reelected. It means it's more important than ever, because now that they have control of the Supreme Court, Trump is the only thing stopping their agenda from becoming reality.
Well, that's my thinking exactly, because I've studied Trump, and I know he's not a perfect person, but he means well. This gets snuck in. I didn't even know until you told me 2 weeks ago. It's all true. I looked it up. His instincts are in the lockdown. His instincts are don't have to take the vaccine. His instincts are this is being exaggerated. This is a scam. And so exactly now, more importantly than ever, to get on down the road to get another better person to replace her. Because as you were saying, if we got a good person, we would have an override on the other side. Now they're going to have an override for what they really want.
Exactly. So like now that they have the court locked up, the only protection at all is Trump. Trump's got to win. And that means, and not only that, people cannot bank on the election lawsuits going the right way, because I don't trust her in that side of the equation either. She's backed by people who want Trump to lose. The main lawyer who led the various impeachment efforts, Norm Eisen, is out saying put her on the bench. So that means we can't trust the lawsuits and the courts to go the right way, which means Trump needs to win by 2-3 points. He needs to win by a safe margin.
So Trump got really suckered bad on this. You're right. I mean, Democrats, the real operatives are like, hey, let's have a show. Let's attack her, but let's get her in. Do you think she's so controlled she might vote against Trump?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, here, put it this way. Who comes out and says that they're like Justice Scalia before the nomination? Judge Thomas hid the fact that he was like Scalia. Judge Gorsuch hid the fact that he was like Scalia. The only kind of person who says they're going to be like Scalia before the nomination hearings is someone who's not. And so that's why I think she's very untrustworthy. And the people backing her, the Koch, I mean, you look at what the Kochs are doing. They're spending a lot of money to see Trump beat, while they're spending a lot of money to see Barrett on the bench. So
that's right. It even came out a year ago. The Kochs are now fully against Trump, but they're backing her. Wow, that's the strongest piece of evidence.
Exactly. So that's why we, the public, and the populist in the party, and the populist in the country, and the independents have to rally to Trump's defense, because Trump needs to win by a bigger margin than ever. Because if he doesn't, then hold on to your hats.
Is there a silver lining? Just like we thought maybe Bill Barr was going to be bad because some of the background. Could Trump have co-opted her to be pro-America? I mean, she's such a follower. Maybe she's going to get on the team. I mean, is there a way to get that done?
My fear is, and it's what I told the people close to Trump, that this is just like Comey and McCabe and Wray and Sessions and Rosenstein and Mattis and Coates and Tillerson, that they were all bad judgments that people like us were warning Trump about, and Trump didn't heed the warning.
So I agree. So Bill Barr is the exception, and not even completely. Of all the bad decisions, okay, one guy didn't turn out to be a total piece of filth.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I think, and Barr, what is he's an institutionalist, but he's like Kissinger. He recognizes the system is going to burn itself down.
Real politic. He realizes that the left's so out of control and the deep state's so out of control, it needs to be curtailed.
Exactly. The deep state is exposing itself the way it did in the late 60s, early 70s. And he realizes that if he doesn't hem them in, they'll torch themselves. And down deep, he believes in the institution. And when I was up and met him at the Hillsdale College event, it was clear by what he said that he felt he didn't have control over Durham. He didn't
and repeat that. What Bill Barr said is diametrically opposed to Amy Coney Barrett. Word for word, he said, this is as bad as slavery. This is the closest thing to slavery we've had since slavery. That's the opposite of her.
Exactly. He said this was the worst civil rights violation in American history since slavery. And I mean, it was an extraordinary statement. So he's telling people Barrett's a bad choice. He's telling people that he doesn't have control of Durham. He's telling people that the line prosecutors are ignoring
That's
what
right.
he
He
does.
came out earlier and said, these prosecutors claim they'll do their job. They lie to my face. They don't. He's telling people.
Exactly. Correct.
And by the way, I have a BS meter. When he's saying all this is real. I think the guy's genuinely pissed.
Yes. Oh, it was clear. It was very clear. He was even more aggressive in interpersonal communication off the video camera than he was when he was on tape. So it was clear he was extremely frustrated that he can't get anybody to go, that the opposition is stronger and more corrupt than he thought.
Exactly.
And that's the problem he has.
Why is the left and their minions so committed to destroying the country and just evil? They'd have more power if they were for the U.S. And I think that's where Barr is. It's like, why are you going to overthrow all this, you idiots?
It's arrogance. It's sort of like the deep state in the late 60s when they thought they could just start whacking presidents and whacking presidential candidates and whacking civil rights leaders and whacking people all around the world. They got so used to assassinating people overseas, they thought they could start doing it back home. They got so used to spying on movements overseas, they thought they could do it back home.
Why would you want to put an invalid in with a cartoon lady for the Chi-Coms when it hurts America and even their interest? They've just been born and bred to hate America. They think if they can beat America, they somehow get better, even though in real terms they get weaker. It's a spiritual thing, isn't it, Barnes?
Oh, no doubt about it. They're very disconnected to the spiritual heart and spiritual soul of America. They believe in power for its own sake, and they've been so pampered and privileged. They're more like the French royalty of the 1700s than they are our American founders. And you're seeing that.
And that's their real weakness. In a way, it's their strength because they're so dumb and bold. But isn't that their weakness, that they totally just like take like Trump's, former ambassador to Germany, and he's now the big national security head, saying to the media, "You idiots don't get it. Everybody hates you. You're done. You're old. You're gone."
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, it's very much, I mean, the reason why the French Revolution succeeded is because French royalty was so out of touch. The reason why the American Revolution succeeded is because the British imperialists were so out of touch. The reason why many civil rights the reason why Trump bulldozed everybody is because the elites are so out of touch. But the downside of that is that they have entrenched power and don't recognize how to even protect themselves in the process of burning America down. They are likely to burn down the village in the name of saving it unless we save it ourselves.
That's right. I mean, even The Hill has the right headline, and so does a bunch of others. It's like the Democrats' new election plan is civil war. Give me back my bullets. Alex Jones here live. Robert Barnes, our guest on this Sunday night. People aren't listening to you. Rick Grinnell rips into the press of their clown show annex at the White House briefing. And again, this is the Director of National Intelligence. He was the ambassador to Germany, got a lot of concessions from NATO. And he just, well, I mean, here's what he had to say, because we're reaching that point, but the press, even though they're being booed everywhere they go, haven't figured it out yet. Here it is.
The special envoy to these talks between Serbia and Kosovo. But I wanted to ask you about another initiative you led. Last year, you kicked off the Trump administration push to decriminalize homosexuality.
Yeah, I'm going to just talk about Kosovo and Serbia. I don't know if you can find it on a map, but this is atrocious. I have to tell you guys, you might be too young to understand what this issue is about. Maybe the older journalists should step up and say, this is a big deal. This is a big issue. I'm astounded at what happens in Washington, D.C., and especially in this room. I got to tell you, get substantive. Maybe it's too complicated of an issue for you all. But
so they're really jokes. We have a major peace deal he's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for. This is a big deal, millions of dead overall. And they're just going to bring up some distractionary BS at every event, at every level of government. They call a press conference on an issue. They won't even ask one real question. It's just, they're a joke. Don't they get they're out of bullets?
Not the media. The media class is young. It's heavily millennial and now even Zoomer, and they're totally disconnected from ordinary people. They've grown up in upper middle class bubbles. They think Seinfeld is a documentary. So I mean, they don't understand sort of ordinary everyday Americans in middle America. And that disassociation and disconnection continues to assist and enable Trump to move forward. And so I think that media gap will be a gap that Trump can still utilize. But increasingly, what the Barrett choice means is that we got to have President Trump in, and it means some of the people that are pretending to be his allies are really his adversaries. It came out today, according to Maria on Fox, that in fact there's going to be no indictments and no report from Durham. So that means that they're further isolating and not helping Trump at key positions that had been.
And that's why it's come out that Mueller team joked about wiping phones and openly said they were total, complete criminal arrogance.
Exactly. In a civil case, they're allowing discovery to move forward to hurt Trump. In the McCabe lawsuit against the FBI, the Stroke lawsuit against the FBI, in the Lisa Page lawsuit against the FBI. And the New York
Times with the tax records. I mean, of course, in real estate, he did it where he got losses most of the year. That's how you run real estate, or you go bankrupt.
That is a criminal violation, by the way, for everybody watching. IRS Section 6103 of Title 26 makes it a crime, makes it illegal to leak those tax returns. And here they leak them right on the eve of the election. It had to have come from Congress or someone within the IRS or the New York Attorney General's office or the DA's office, who's also been trying to get these records. So somebody, or the Mueller team, somebody leaked these records illegally. It's a crime. There should be investigations, but that's what happens when nobody sees any consequences from the Durham inquiry. And to Barr's credit, he hinted at this at the Hillsdale meeting that I was at the dinner with him, is that he had no control over the people underneath him, that he's trying.
Well, he didn't hint at it. He said these people literally just work for the deep state, do whatever they want.
Exactly, that there's no longer democratic controls, little d democratic controls.
I think you said it. Trump makes mistakes, he gets educated. I think we educate him and warn him on this lady so that he gets concessions and behind the scenes up front, she gets hit with some real questions by Republicans instead of fawning at her so that we can get her positioned to not be a total traitor. Because I think she's a follower, Barrett is, and I think overall she has some good ideas, some really bad ideas. I think just her MO, now that I've had a chance to look at her, maybe I'm wrong, is that if there's enough pressure put on her at the hearings and by the culture that she won't be the creature of the Koch brothers and that Trump can cut her out, or is that just no hope?
Oh, no, there's hope of that because she's a memorizer personality. She's not like a Bork level intellect. So she's one of those people that memorized everything in school and was kind of the teacher's pet kind of personality.
But wasn't Bork also another kind of a authoritarian?
Oh, yes. Bork had a lot of crazy ideas. He was for forced sterilization as a condition of employment. So I was never a Bork fan, but he was extremely intelligent. Whereas, so that meant he was harder to move. She's not very intelligent actually at all. And so she is someone that can, through pressure, be pushed to change positions. And so that's the one. And the second component is everybody needs to rally to Trump. And third, Trump needs better political people around him down the election stretch. Like, for example, he should be having advertising about how he has kept us out of war in the Midwest. There's
exactly no ads about how the biggest peace deals in like 100 years. Nothing about all the real accomplishments. I agree.
Exactly. And yeah, they're running like he's running like a Chamber of Commerce Republican or a Romney Republican with these ads. That's not the way to win in Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa.
I agree. He needs to say it's the deep state killed the economy. They're bad. People know the deep state did it. They want to hear Trump say what they already know. Trump needs to say what we already know. He says that, he wins. He says stuff people don't care about, they don't come out and vote.
Exactly. He needs to say, look, the choices are simple. He needs to hammer this in the debates. If you want more war, vote for Joe Biden. If you want more if you want to, like he said at his speech, at his renomination speech, he said, look, if you want, what Joe Biden did is he shipped your jobs overseas, and then he shipped your kids to die overseas. He needs to hammer that in the debate on Tuesday. And then he needs to hammer that in the television advertisements after that. And needs to remind him that this election is, if you want more lockdowns, especially given Barrett's going to be on the court, if you want more lockdowns, vote for Joe Biden. The only thing stopping it is Donald Trump. The only thing protecting your job and protecting your safety and protecting your security and keeping us out of bad war is Donald Trump. He is your last line of defense. He is your wall, literally and figuratively, between total disaster and American re-hope and re-opportunity.
I love watching these videos of some of the peace deals at the White House, how all of the establishment, anybody that's actually powerful doesn't wear a mask. Everyone else does. This is a real class thing. The 3 minutes we've got left, Barnes, the martial law in England, arresting people that come out and protest the lockdowns, the second wave, because they know there's always flu and cold deaths during the winter they're hyping. I mean, we need Trump to go on offense against COVID as a fraud. I mean, I think that's one of his big failings. Yeah, he's having rallies. Yeah, he makes fun of the mask. But I think he needs to go further and really kill their key issue the deep state's using to kill the economy.
Exactly. Make the lockdown in the Midwest the issue of the election. Say, look, do you want more lockdowns? Do you want the end of your jobs permanently? You mean make in the Midwest, make the election about three things. Do you want more lockdowns? Do you want more war? Or do you want more jobs? Or you want them shipped off? Because Joe Biden is horrible on all three. He's a guarantee for more lockdowns.
And he wants your guns, and he wants to open the borders, and he supports pedophiles.
Exactly. You have all of those additional components, but hammer those three issues where Trump is uniquely strong, much stronger than your average Republican, and Biden is uniquely weak, even weaker than Hillary Clinton on those issues.
And I think he's smart to put out the habit, Joe's getting a methamphetamine shot and all the rest of it. Join us Tuesday night if you want to. We're going to just stay live from 8 a.m. with David Knight right through to midnight. We're going to 6 to 7, no break. I'm going to be there the whole time. Deanna Lorraine, you, Owen Schroyer, whoever else wants to be here, Savannah Hernandez. We're going to have crew on the ground in Cleveland covering all of it. This debate is going to be spectacular. What do you think is going to happen?
It's critical. I think Biden will come across much better than people think. Trump is right that he's likely going to be drugged up. But I think he'll come across like in that debate with Bernie one-on-one where everybody thought he'd fall apart. He actually did the best he's ever done. So I think they're going to have him tuned up. They've been having him sort of isolated for a week, just preparing him for the debate. That he'll be on robot mode. He'll be on repetition mode. So I think he'll come across better than expected. The key is for Trump to hammer the big issues. Remind people that Joe Biden has voted for every bad war in history. Remind people that Joe Biden has voted for every bad trade deal in history. Remind people that if Joe Biden is elected, you're going to be locked down the moment he gets inaugurated. So
Kamala Harris, black people, she has the lowest polls of any candidate in the whole DNC system, not even 2%. Everybody I know that's black literally hates her. She's so fake. She thinks Tupac is still alive.
They recognize her right away. I mean, they recognize who she is. They recognize where she comes from, that she comes from the Jamaican slaveholding aristocracy, that she's more Indian and Canadian than she is African-American. Her mother was Indian. She grew up in Canada. They know, and she's someone who is a harsh, punitive, vicious, often selective prosecutor. She kept innocent people in jail deliberately knowing they were innocent.
That's right.
So,
all right, Robert Barnes, amazing. Thank you so much. People can follow him on Twitter. Robert Barnes, thank you so much. Final segment with David Icke straight ahead.